So you're here for another bonus. Well, this one is about the Baths of Caracalla. The Baths of Caracalla, as they stand today, are these massive ruins. They are just outside the main city center of Rome. And even though they're ruins, they provide us a lot of information, not only about this site, but about architecture and architecture in general and how buildings must have looked and how they would have functioned all around the empire. So first off, these are called baths because the Romans did not have regular indoor plumbing in every single house. Instead, a bath was a public facility, and it was used not only as a place to clean, but kind of like a health spa. It provided large bodies of water, some of them in different and varied temperatures, but it also had rooms designated for exercise. There were libraries, lecture halls, gardens. It was a social gathering. These were massive public recreational spaces. The ones that Caracalla built, or I should say, that were built under the reign or during the reign of Caracalla, are the ones that we're looking at here. But I want you to remember that every Roman city would have at least one public bathhouse. The baths of Caracalla were massive, bigger than any other because, well, it's Caracalla. It could house comfortably about 1,600 people. It covered about 50 acres, and it was built of concrete with a brick-faced facade, and the ceilings were over 140 feet tall. This is an artist reconstruction of the larger site. What we are looking at here are the main bathhouse, that's the ruins that we looked at, and then here are the gardens. These would be places that you could go and have a little snack and enjoy the manicured foliage, maybe go for a walk with a friend, gossip about the latest and greatest in the empire. You could attend different lectures. You could hear people speak, recite poems, share stories of the day. Like I said, it was a larger recreational space. The main building in the Baths of Caracalla is what we're looking at here. It featured a stadium. Yep, a stadium for public events to be held. And then you would walk into the large bathhouse, and there would be varied rooms where you could do your exercises and wash up and, check people out. Oh, right? Oh, so modern, so cool, so chic, right? This is a close-up of the main building. Now, like every bathhouse in Rome, there would be at least 3 pools of water. There would be a hot bath called a caldarium. There would be a warm temperature bath, that would be the tepidarium, and then a cold temperature bath called the frigidarium. So right off the bat, you should recognize those Latin terms for hot, like cauldron, scalding, hot. Tepid means not hot, not cold, warm. And frigid, like your refrigerator, is cold. And you could go between these 3 baths. There was also a recreational just swimming pool. And then, like I said, there were gyms, there were locker rooms where you keep your stuff. It was an impressive space to be in, the Baths of Caracalla. This is a cutaway based on the archaeological record and how people described the Baths of Caracalla. He spared no expense. He wanted to impress people. He wanted to ingratiate himself with the public, with the people of Rome. He wasn't there to try and win the favors of the senators. No, that's not who he cared about. He wanted to be popular. He wanted to be well loved. And so he built the massive bathhouse as a way to impress and hopefully, like I said, ingratiate himself with the Roman public. The space is described as having these mosaic floors that were heated from below. So you'd be walking around in your loose bath toga and you wouldn't have any cold feet. Ooh, it's so cold because it was heated. The bricks of the floor were heated from below. There were these large furnaces that had these pipes of hot air that would flow right under the floorboards. And so they would heat up the floor, and then those large hot pumps of air would heat up the caldarium and control the tepidarium. These large furnaces were manned by slaves. So there were slaves underneath the floorboards who were just stoking these furnace fires as you were lounging above in the pools and getting the latest gossip. The walls were encrusted with mosaics, but also colored marble and other kind of elaborate paintings. We're going to look at a couple of those. And then there were statues placed throughout the entire space. Because again, this isn't just a place to get bathed. This was also a place to learn a lecture about art. And then you'd walk outside of the lecture hall and see some statues around. Maybe the lecture was about the canon of art. And then you look around and you see some statues and you talk about this with your fellow lecture goers. One student will always ask, what about gender in this space? Were men and women like bathing naked together? Great question. No, there would usually, or there always was, hours for male and female attendees. And these would have been understood. You would go in according to the hour of, or according to your gender and the hours that the bath was open to you. Now, as I said, the walls were decorated in various images in mosaic. Here we are in one of the gymnasiums. Remember, gymnasium means place to get naked. And that's what we see here. We see these buff naked dudes. So these mosaics are surrounding the space. Here, I'll come back to these, but here, there you go. They were surrounding the space that you would be working out. And they would be there to remind you of the hard work that you were trying to build up. Now, let's talk about them in comparison to simply other nude male figures. We've seen lots of male figures, nude male figures in this class. But what is different about these late imperial bodybuilders? What do you know? What do you see? They're stocky, they're thick, they're boxy. They don't have the same contrapposto as Polycletios's Doryphoros. They're definitely not as lean and graceful and elegant as Lysippos's Apoxymenos. Instead, what we see is it's not fair to say it, but a more basic, rudimentary representation of the body. I don't want to use those kind of more derogatory terms of rudimentary or basic because, again, it's not that the art is slipping or is not, artists are not aware of the classical world. It's just that the emphasis is not on the naturalistic representation, but the abstract. And if we look at these bodybuilders as abstract representations of the perfect man, then what we see is an emphasis on brute strength, right? Stocky build, heavy bodies, rather than these long, elegant, graceful figures of the classical world. Another fun thing about the Baths of Caracalla is that one of the statues we learned about in the Hellenistic was here, in the Baths of Caracalla. Do you recognize it? I know, it's a blurry image. One of the statues that we looked at for the Hellenistic was from the baths of Caracalla. It's this one. It's Lysippos' Wary Heracles. We talked about the Wary Heracles in the did I say Hellenistic? I meant late classical. The late classical period. And we talked about how the big, bulky Heracles was exhausted from completing his 11th task, getting those apples of Hesperides, right? And we do see a similarity in the big, blocky muscles of the Baths of Caracalla mosaics. The fact that this was at the Baths of Caracalla and it has a resemblance to these mosaics, again, make that connection of big, heavy, bulky bodybuilding men and Heracles, this man with godlike strength. This is the ideal of the Roman man at this time, this brute force. Gone is the idealism of a balanced body and a balanced mind. It's all about the heavy force of the man. It's about violence and intimidation and getting what you want with force. But that's what Caracalla does. And so we see it manifesting itself in the ideal Roman in these baths. The space would have been brightly decorated with all of these mosaics and colored marble and travertine. The vaults, which are now gone, they've collapsed, were coffered vaults. And this is the inside of the bath. I want you just to imagine you were here to swim in the tepidarium and the frigidarium and the caldarium, and these would have been lined in bright colored marble as you would chit chat with your friends and listen to music, walk around the sweet smelling gardens. It would have been quite an experience. It got its own aqueduct to feed the baths themselves. That's how big this bathhouse was. I'm trying to scroll to show you where the aqueduct ran. There it is. You see it? Right at the top. So if you remember, we talked about aqueducts in the early imperial period with the Pont du Gard. Pont du Gard was bringing fresh water from a source to the city of Nimes. One aqueduct serving the entire city. This bathhouse needs its own aqueduct. It has an aqueduct that feeds from one of the main aqueducts of Rome, and it's dedicated to just this space for fountains, for those swimming pools. Quite impressive. And that's what Caracalla would have wanted. He wanted you to be impressed so that you wouldn't want to assassinate him. Didn't work.